My first EDF game was back on the original Xbox 360. I remember it was released during that beginning time with a new console where as a player you just wanted more games to play. From some of the screenshots of the game, I thought the game didn't look that graphically impressive, and very silly in that it featured you shooting just a variety of different bugs. The graphical thing really didn't matter. The most important part was how fun it would be to play. What also caught my eye was how it featured split-screen co-op. This mode is part of my history and I'm always happy when I see it. So since EDF had this mode, I figured it was worth a try and I'd see if my friend and I would enjoy it. We honestly fell in love with EDF. The screenshots did not lie. It was silly and not that impressive to look at, but something that you just couldn't get from reading articles and looking at pictures was how fun this game was to play. Blasting away at all manner of bugs was just awesome. This is a good example of a silly concept being a solid fit for a video game. There was a bunch of guns to choose from and some upgrading that you could do as well. And on top of that, I got to enjoy it with my friend. When the characters in the game chanted EDF, we always had a smile on our face. This is an underrated series that deserves more attention, especially with the consistent quality in the provided gameplay. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my review for Earth Defense Force 5. You can choose between 4 unique character classes that play differently from each other. You have the Ranger, who provides you more of the traditional EDF experience. The Ranger is the foot soldier and a good place to start for any newcomer. For the most part, their weapons fit a traditional mold, which also makes them really easy to pick up and play. The Wing Diver is the most agile of the 4 classes. The Wing Diver has access to a jetpack, which allows them to attack vertically unlike any other character. In addition, where the Ranger has a roll to avoid damage, the Wing Diver will flip and burst out of the way. The trick with the Wing Diver is that their weapons, boosts, and jetpack all come from an energy pool that will recharge. This means that you need to consider this energy element when using this class so you don't run into a situation where you don't have any jetpack energy or you cannot recharge your weapons for a bit. In short, the Wing Diver has the most mobility options but the weakest level of defense. The Air Raider is the designated support class. The Air Raider is probably the most unique of the 4 to play as. He has some different explosives to use for attacks, but he can call in a variety of different bombing runs to attack locations targeted by the player. The cooldown for these moves are long, but the attacks are devastating. Along with this, you can request missiles and satellites to attack on your behalf. Then you have a good amount of different stationary weapons like different turrets that you can place, along with a variety of different support items like being able to heal your teammates. This class is the most unique in that it causes a lot of indirect damage. While you are still within the action, you are also playing different roles on the battlefield. The healing options allows you to be an effective medic, and the stationary weapons provides you with opportunities to attack multiple enemies at once. The last class is the Fencer. The Fencer is more of a tank class with slower mobility. As this class, you can equip different weapons that focus on melee combat, mortars, chain guns, and a lot more. Along with this, you can use shields to help you take on more enemy fire. The interesting thing with this class is that you can build them into being more of a traditional tank or become a class that is more of an offensive tank depending on what weapons and items you equip. When it comes to who you want to play as, each of the 4 classes brings something unique to the table, allowing the game to feel fresh for a very long time. Now, on top of the 4 different classes to choose from, there's a great amount of customization to the player. Each of the classes allows you to mix and match what equipment and weapons you want to bring into each mission. I spent most of my time with the Ranger. With him, I got to choose between 2 different weapons, and those range from different machine guns, shotguns, rocket launchers, and some healing items, along with a lot more. This can include calling in different vehicles to control. The Air Raider also has this ability, but with different vehicles for that class. They can be anything from different mechs, tanks, or even something really unique. The vehicles are kind of cumbersome to control, but they are still very fun to use because of the huge boost in firepower. I should probably talk about the best area about EDF, the addictive gameplay loop. Essentially, EDF operates like a third-person shooter. There's 110 missions to fight through, and each of the missions have the same objective for the most part. Destroy all of the bugs and aliens that you find. The shooting is really easy to get into and satisfying. The gun sounds for the different weapons range from decent to pretty good. What really makes the shooting pop is how your shots have a great impact on the enemies. As you shoot enemies, their skin, armor, and even body parts will pop off. Since everything either dies or reacts to your shots in interesting ways, this helps to keep the minute-to-minute action very fun. Another thing to note is that almost every weapon that you use has unlimited ammo, so you will not need to worry about picking up ammo, but you will need to keep an eye on your health so you can find those pickups and not die. As you defeat enemies, they will drop armor upgrades that will increase your total health, along with new weapons or improved versions of weapons that you already own. So with this form of progression, you will always walk away from each mission with something new. While the missions feature the same-ish objectives, EDF comes packed with awesome enemy variety. You will fight a wide variety of different ants, spiders, and bees. On top of this, you will fight gun-wielding aliens, frogs, UFOs, Godzilla-like monsters, and large motherships. In many cases, each of the different classes of enemies come with a few different variations. For example, there's your normal ant, then you have your fire ants, and then you have ants that will eat buildings and move really fast. The armed frogs are interesting because you can blow off their limbs, and they will react to not having their arms and legs anymore. But if you do not kill them after this, they will regenerate their limbs back. This type of stuff keeps the enemies interesting and engaging. The game does a good job of slowly introducing new enemies to you throughout the campaign. Since many missions feature a combination of different enemy types, you can feel like everything is being thrown at you at once, especially in the later stages. And while this can look like a mess at times, the game does have a great sense of scale. The game does a great job of selling that underdog but empowering feeling that you are a single soldier in a larger war up against foes that tower over you. The game may not have the most detailed graphics, but they get the job done and make up with that with how many enemies they can have on screen. This effectively sells the feeling of fighting an actual alien invasion. Many of the campaign missions will take place on reused maps, but the game does a decent job of providing different locations and variety so that the levels aren't so tedious. Some levels are in valleys, tunnels, bases, and different cities. Sometimes the weather or time of day is different. When it comes to the minute-to-minute gameplay, EDF 5 excels. The 4 classes provide 4 unique ways to play the game. The addictive gameplay loop of completing missions, shooting enemies, and collecting armor and weapon upgrades never gets old. What elevates the entire experience is the thick layer of cheese and camp that is found here. The story and lines delivered by the different soldiers can be really funny and hits that perfect cheesy note.
Everyone, I saw their faces. They have 2 eyes on their face. Like humans, they see things with their eyes. We can use this against them.
Not only casualties, the whole city will be gone. What is going on? What in the world are we fighting against? This is more than an act of terrorism. Does that mean we're at war with some country? This is the world at war. Damn! I was about to travel abroad next week. Just my luck.
EDF 5 delivers a wealth of enjoyable content that can be played in single player and in online and offline co-op. I spent a large amount of my time in single player and offline co-op, and I had a blast in both modes. In a generation where split screen modes are being phased out, it's great to see this series maintain that old school quality of being able to enjoy this game with friends either online or off. I had a great time with this title and encountered a few flaws along the way. One issue that I noticed right away is how the first few missions can be a bit slow when it comes to getting into the action. The tutorial sections feel a bit drawn out, but with the first few missions having pacing issues, this isn't really a problem when the remaining 100 are relatively awesome. I had one issue where the tutorial section for a vehicle stayed up during the entire level, even when I exited the vehicle. One other thing that I want to bring up is that I wish that there was a difficulty that was between easy and normal. Easy generally feels too easy, but normal can be pretty tough at times. The other thing that you may have noticed with the gameplay is that at times the game's frame rate can take a dive. There are a good amount of levels where things get really chaotic and the frame rate can turn into a slideshow. Oddly enough, this stuff normally bothers me in other games, but here I wasn't really annoyed by what was happening. I wish the frame rate was more consistently stable, but the game also throws armies of enemies at you. So while the frame rate can take a dive, the game effectively makes you feel like you are up against these armies. So in short, the frame rate can be inconsistent, but when paired with all the good stuff that this game does, I didn't find myself really caring about it. EDF 5 is just too much fun. The EDF series takes a concept that perfectly fits for a video game. It puts you in the role of a soldier during an alien invasion, and your job is to shoot all the bugs you come across. While I haven't played every entry of this underrated series, EDF 5 is a great and addictive game that is packed with many hours of content. The game can be enjoyed in single player and in offline and local co-op. You can choose between 4 unique classes. The enemy variety is very high and keeps the action interesting. Blowing off the skin and limbs off of enemies is satisfying, along with shooting some of the buildings and watching them crumble. The progression is addicting as you continually earn new weapons and armor upgrades. EDF 5 is a very fun game that I highly recommend. Thank you very much for watching.
This is number 1-5, Sentinel 2. Please respond.